Welcome to another episode of ALPS in Brief. I'm Mark Bassingthwaighte, the risk manager at ALPS, and we're recording here at the historic Florence building in Missoula, Montana. I am very pleased to have as our guest today Matt Lubaroff, the Director of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service here. And today we're going to talk a little bit about cyber insurance. Matt, in terms of over the years of my experiences consulting with lawyers, conducting risk visits and these kinds of things, it's somewhat common for lawyers to have this belief that, we're not big enough in terms of our firm, in terms of size. We're not going to be on the radar of hackers and these kinds of things. And I guess, would you agree? Or do they face a problem that they really need to be concerned about? Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I would not agree. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago,
Yeah.
It was probably the case because hacking was new.
Right.
We didn't know what ransomware was. We didn't know what clicking on clickbait links were and how that impacted us. But it's evolved into probably one of the most sophisticated industries out there, where some of the best technological minds, unfortunately, are using their skills for evil and not for good. So it really becomes a matter of when any business, but specifically law firms, will get hacked, not a matter of if.
Yeah. I love there's the FBI has put all kinds of information out there for law firms and businesses in general. And there's a great quote from one of the FBI guys. It's been maybe a year or so, but he basically said there's two types of corporations in the world: those that have been hacked and those that don't know they've been hacked.
Yeah,
and that's
it's accurate. We all click on things and go, "Oh,
Right.
I didn't mean to do that," but
right.
it's a little too late at that point.
Well, and I absolutely agree with you in terms of, regardless of size, that law firms have a significant risk. Can we talk a little bit about solutions? What kind of solutions can we bring to the table and help with here?
Well, there's really two types of solutions that I suggest. One, of course, is insurance.
Right.
I mean, as lawyers are trained in ways to manage their own risk. They go to law school not just to learn the substance of the legal substance of law and how to provide services to their community, but they also spend a lot of time in risk management techniques. They build practices that are successful. They build practices that help in our community, and the majority of lawyers out there are purchasing malpractice insurance in case a client sues them.
Right.
But not enough lawyers, not enough law firms are buying cyber insurance. So one way to prevent something is to purchase a product that will protect you should something happen, because accidents do happen.
Yeah.
The other one that's probably just as important is training, employee training. Some of that comes from understanding is how to prevent a hack. What are systems, both technical and people-wise, that you can put in place to make sure that you are up to speed with techniques that will prevent that hack from happening in the first place.
Right. And a lot of what I do, I try to talk, whether it's, again, consulting or lecturing, I try to talk about the necessity of, if you will, securing the human. And that certainly is frontline defense. But this other piece of the insurance is absolutely essential and necessary because, again, it just a naive, innocent misstep, clicking on the wrong link, opening the wrong file or attachment or these kinds of things can lead to just devastating consequences. Now for some time, ALPS has brought to the table, if you will, for our insureds, a basic cyber insurance policy. But we are just launching now a new product. Can you explain and share where we're going with this type of coverage?
Yeah, Mark, happy to do so. We've tried to also adapt with the times.
Right.
And we've had the cyber policy available to our law firms for low per lawyer cost and lower limits for several years now.
Right.
And as our hackers have become more and more sophisticated, we're all familiar with malware and ransomware that's become more and more popular, both in TV shows or in just the unfortunate press of everyday life.
Yeah.
So we've increased that coverage to provide more of that protection. We've also expanded the liability coverage to handle really 3 different ways of providing the coverage. There's
Interesting.
one set of limits that's available for that indemnity, or kind of make yourself whole. So if you get
Okay.
hacked and there's a cost to you as a law firm, there's one aspect of the policy that provides that coverage. But there's 2 other towers or layers of coverage that we've included in the new policy that are just as important, if not more important. And one is that prevention, the response to the hack or to the privacy breach. We need to figure out how it happened, where it is within your computer systems, and how to prevent it from happening again.
So this is dealing with some of the forensic teams that come in and the costs associated with that.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And that third one is, I think you were telling me in an earlier conversation that 47 of 50 states have
breach notification.
breach notification laws
Right,
and requirements.
right.
And so there is an available limit of liability should there be some notification requirements
Yes.
within that breach.
Which can be very, very costly.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't understand, you know, what do these regulations mean? So, for example, it's not in terms of the breach notification regulations that you're subject to. It's not where the breach occurred. It's where anybody impacted by the breach resides. And so when you think about law firms that have clients and all kinds of other people in their databases that cross these borders, this can get costly quickly. Sounds like we got a wonderful product here.
Yeah, and the thing is these are very complicated situations.
Yes.
So let's just take the situation where a firm has ransomware. Ransomware is
Okay.
defined as your data is now encrypted.
Yes.
And the only way for you to get back your data, realistically, is to pay the ransom. So if you think of how a typical cyber policy might respond, is you have the payment of ransom. That's cyber extortion.
Right.
You have the forensic investigation, which is that breach response, that second
Yes,
tower,
right,
so to
right.
speak. Then there's the expense to restore the data from the backup that hopefully you have. That's data protection. Then you've got a loss of business. There are hospitals, stories of businesses that have had to shut down completely because what they need they can't get to.
Right.
So that's network business interruption. Then you have the response, to your point, to the regulatory inquiries. You need an expert to navigate through that, and you don't want to do it poorly, you don't want to do it too quickly, but you have to make sure that you follow the letter of the regulatory laws. And then you have these individual third-party claims where it wasn't your data, it was somebody else's data that maybe you are in care and control of, and that third party, that other group, has been impacted by that data being stolen or lost. And there's susceptibility for claims there.
Okay. Wow. You convinced me when I started to think through all of these different exposures. And, you know, you think at times initially, oh, I get hacked, and you just bring some, you know, this is pretty complex stuff and spins out in all kinds of directions. I love it. You convinced me, and I hope many of the folks listening to us of a very of the value and need for a product like this. Can you share a little bit about, you know, okay, so I'm an ALPS insured, and how do I get this? What are my options? How do I go through this process?
Well, one of the things that we've aimed to do is make it as easy as possible for you. So
Okay.
when you have your quote,
Right.
when you're accepting your ALPS policy,
So you're talking about the quote for the legal malpractice
Yes.
coverage. Okay.
when you're being quoted or accepting your
Okay.
lawyer's malpractice insurance,
Right.
you automatically have the ability, with no application, to accept our low limit, low cost, it's charged per the attorney, right around $50.
Okay.
You don't need an application. Just accept it, sign,
That makes
pay,
it pretty easy.
done.
Yeah. Wow.
We have some different limits
Nice.
based on the firm size,
Okay.
but there's no extra effort required. We also are very, very happy to offer limits up to $1 million, which, if you think of the susceptibility of data and how quickly things can happen and inspire a lot of control, the ability to secure your data and have response services available to you for up to $1 million of limits is also important.
And
There's no application required. However, we do have some risk management suggestions that we can help you put in place to
Okay.
make sure that we can continue to proceed, get you those limits, protect your law firm. They're a little bit more expensive. We have some minimum premiums and higher per attorney costs, but what I can say without any concern is that's the easiest process, the lowest cost, and I'd argue probably the best policy out there in the marketplace.
Yeah. And it's my understanding this policy is the first out there to be designed, written intentionally, or directed at law firms. Is
Yeah.
that, am I correct about that?
You are correct. We've partnered with Beasley, United States, and Beasley, London,
Okay.
who's probably the leader in this
Yeah.
space as
Yeah,
it is
absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they worked with us to provide a custom form, custom policy, and custom process specifically for the ALPS Lawyers book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing all this, Matt. From my perspective as a risk guy and just an individual living in this crazy world, this is a screaming deal as I see it. I personally, I'm not trying to tell everybody go out and buy these policies in the sense I'm not, but how can you afford not to do this? When you look at the frequency of the attacks, the severity of these kinds of attacks, and it seems like, you guys have really done a great job of putting a fantastic policy together that covers all these things. We've made it as easy as possible. I mean, just wow, well done, job well done. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Matt? Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would just encourage folks to talk to their account manager if they're an insurer, if they're in the process of applying with any type of insurance, specifically lawyers insurance. Make sure they're asking about this.
Okay.
It's really a shame. It's unfair when businesses or law firms get hacked. It's scary because there's people out there smarter than us that are coming up with ways more devious than we could ever imagine to get access to that data. And we all deserve to have our data protected. We all deserve to have experts by our side who are helping us prevent it and walk alongside that path to recover should a hack happen.
Right. And and a closing thought that I would have, just as again coming at it from the risk perspective, is we are charged with protecting the confidences of our clients, and I just think even as a consumer, you and I suspect, in terms of just statistically, are victims of the Equifax breach, and I have some feelings about Equifax that are not the most positive things right now. And so I just encourage, all of you listening out there to appreciate too, if you ever are breached and don't have this type of insurance out there and can deal with this in a responsible way, how do you think your clients are going to respond? I just invite you to look at it from that perspective too. It's another way to come back and say, I just don't understand how you can afford not to do this, how you get to that point. Well, listen, Matt, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing the information, and if any of you have any, in terms of listening to us, if you have any ideas of topics or things that you'd like to hear in future, please don't hesitate letting us know. You can reach me at mbass@alpsnet.com. Thanks for listening, folks.